feeling this way since we hooked up.
I ain't walking away no matter what.
Tell me what you're fighting for, and I will fight with you. Cause this is our love story. This is our journey. This is our love story. This is our journey.
Coming from a straight, traditional KwaZulu family, and I'm like 100%, and I'm a big subscriber to being 100% Mzulu. So I knew one thing that was very important, even in the culture itself. When you're about to get married, you start your own culture, your own family. You start your own tradition, let me put it that way, because culture guides you to starting good tradition. So the whole idea of that one is to pay lobola, how it was done is that people used to look after you. They would build your house. They would do all the, before, in those days that when I was about to have a bride, for an example, the cattle we used to have like 50 or 60 cattle anyway. So 15 cattle as part of and all those cattle were not just take 15, no. There was a story behind that, so I don't think you've got time for that. We'll have that one separately. But in other words, there are certain things that have got to do with the beauty of what is in our culture. It's you now are starting a new family. I need to make sure I've covered my wife. She's got a home. She's settled. She can drive. She can. There doesn't need to be any questions about that. So that is how the whole thing of how the then dowry was supposed to be part of. It's just part of families getting together to exchange. But now there are too many traditional things involved for me to throw at her being from New York, because when you do that, you involve a lot of people from home, and everybody comes with their own things. Others will bring this, others bring that. I said, listen, we're cutting through that. We're starting a new family. This is how it's going to work.
They say that you marry a family, you don't just marry a person. And I think between me and her, there's not much of systematic, traditional things. It's simple. We understand each other, we're young, and then we have our own way of doing things. So now the challenge is when now you have to incorporate the families into this thing. And then now they come with their own systems of how they do things, how they say things, places they go at what time. And then now you sort of now have to say, I forgot about that. I didn't tell her about that. And then she now says, okay, but what is all this? And now it looks as if your family is unreasonable, her family is unreasonable. Well, as is those systems that we never quite, even myself coming to Gauteng, I didn't quite come with it.
So obviously culture and tradition, she comes from a Hindi background.
Yes.
And I come from a Tamil background, which is it's different in terms of the Indian community. You have the two different religions or cultures. And back in the day, it wasn't normal. It wasn't like, how could I put it? It wasn't normal for a Tamil guy to marry a Hindi girl.
Explain what Tamil is.
So a Tamil is basically someone, it's a religion. So Tamil is a religion. It's a sub-religion of the Hindu culture. Okay? And Hindi is also a religion.
My husband being a Swazi, as he mentioned, and being a Xhosa, that was not a easy match. He had no problem with that because he grew up in Transvaal, Springs, and he was used to Xhosas and all that. But my father-in-law, they didn't like Xhosa women for whatever reason. And I won't lie to you, I went through a whole lot of stuff, but not from him, but from the family.
I think for me, there are a lot of I don't know if it's cultural statements or rules that have been set for a long time that boys and girls can't be friends when you're growing up. But you never ever told when is the right time to actually consider someone who's of the opposite sex as someone that you might be attracted to or are attracted to. So you grow up, you have a like with an elderly person or a family member saying, "You've got a friend who's a girl. That's not right." No, whereas you get sent to multiracial schools and that happens. So and so is my friend, and it's in a different. It's said by someone of a different culture. So in our case, I think being raised African at home, but being sent to multiracial schools, there have been those conflict of views where, personally, I've questioned certain ways of thinking in either culture, whether it be a Western culture that we are a part of at school, growing up, or even at home. There's certain things that you don't like on both, and the main thing is that you seek God and you look at God's standard of how something is meant to be done, and you focus on that because you find that in African culture certain things are just done, but no one can explain to you why it's done a certain way. It's just the way it's always been done.
You need to communicate your expectations. I mean, for me, I feel like a mother-in-law and a makoti can sit and sort of communicate, this is what I expect from you, and this is what I can deliver, this is what I can't, I feel like with us, we didn't sort of have that conversation, and then there was that sort of barrier, but I mean, now with time, we are in such a good space, but before I was very confused. I was like, and from home, I didn't do much, I never did much. So I was like, oh my gosh, do you expect me to cook? Do I have to clean? I was very frustrated because I didn't know what I'm supposed to do. How do I make them happy? How do I, but that's what I'm saying. With time, it really helped a lot. So now I know it's okay. You know what? I enjoy cooking and they enjoy my cooking. So I'm going to do most of the cooking. If they see, oh, she doesn't like cleaning, they're going to clean because they can see, okay, Millie doesn't like cleaning, So we've sort of now found that balance. They know I'm a kitchen person. I don't like cleaning So I think, with time, it really does help.
So basically, when I first went to her, she was a bit wary to take me home because of that. Because obviously the family preferred her bringing someone of the same culture. And when I was sitting down having supper with the mom wanted to change my name because the mom didn't. She said, "Can I call you Praveen?" Because Praveen is a Hindi name, and my name is Mpoomy, which is like a proper Tamil name. You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of okay. Yeah.
I mean, initially, because we got married quite young, so when my dad said he wants actual cows, for me, I felt like my dad is punishing us. It felt like, oh my gosh, why would you?
Why is he being
so mean and extra and stuff? And so I tried to get my mom to get him to let the whole cow thing go, and it was just not happening. But on the day when it happened, when the cows came home, and now seeing the cows, and now the cows have kids too, it's so beautiful. We got to understand, and we agreed. It was actually, we probably want to do that for our daughter. We probably don't even want money. We just want cows. But so culture and tradition hasn't really affected us much because of our families, I guess. Our families aren't very traditional, but your lobola and stuff that we did, but I think it was more of a positive thing than a negative thing.
For us, in terms of the culture that we've created for our family, I think we're just very clear from the word go. We want to raise our kids our way. We want to do things our way. We want to start our own generation, our own ways of doing things, our own way of spending Christmas and spending New Year and spending birthdays. So I'm if we're happy with it, then that's just what it is, and also I think we've also created a culture where, because I know that sounds a little bit selfish, okay, you and your husband and your kids, and then now there's all that extended family. So we've also created a culture also of maybe doing one holiday with the in-laws, and then visiting my family, sort of involve them. But 80% of the time, we have created our own little culture as a family. This is what we like, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it.
Guys, I thought I wasn't getting married. Oh, I thought I wasn't getting married. So this is me upstairs. And I'm sitting with a friend of mine, and I can hear Lou's uncles going in deep in his Xhosa. And I'm hearing my uncles and my aunt speaking Pedi, and it's just, as in, it's a culture clash now. It's my Pedi, my Xhosa. It's And then they're like, no, I heard one uncle say, let's leave this. And Ulianda's like calling me, and I'm not answering the phone because I'm like, you're just gonna like my anxiety, you're gonna raise it even higher, and you wanna know what's going on. And the funny part about it, what was different about us is that our parents sat together before the negotiations to negotiate.
Yeah.
So Lou's uncles were only supposed to drop off what was negotiated between the two parents. But when they got there,
things changed.
They
Obviously,
changed the
it's not gonna
formula.
be as is.
I think the reason why I was reluctant to take him home was because, in my family, ironically, all of the girls married Tamil boys, and it didn't go down well. We used to have lectures from our aunties like, this will be the last one, and then the next one gets married to a Tamil boy.
There's a family, the Thompsons, that took me in after my surgery, and so that became my home, away from home. And so whenever I would come to South Africa on business, I would stay in their home. So he actually proposed to me. Well, he proposed to me twice. Okay. And he proposed to me in their home. And so when we said, well, let's have a ceremony, it was like, well, let's have it in the Thompsons' home. And they were open to that. But then, Baba, we started trying to create a guest list. And I said, this is their home. We can't have any more than 25, 30 people at the most. And as we started trying, I didn't know anyone here, but as we started trying to go through it was getting more and more people. And Baba said, no, we can't do this. So I misunderstood culture. So when he said, no, we can't do this. And I said, but you've never been married. Don't you want a wedding? He said, we can't do it like this. And he said, because people will come from everywhere. I said, what do you mean? No, you give invitations. People don't come unless they receive an invitation. He said, not here. And he said, they will come from Durban in buses, and they will say, we've come to make your wedding special. And I kept saying from my culture, no, nobody just rocks up at a wedding. You have to be invited.
It was not an easy thing to navigate in that ambiguity. But being a Christian, I was able to look up to the Lord, and I won because I'm still here.
The title Makoti and what is expected of Makoti. Okay. So I think that was the massive challenge, where with my mom, she's young, but she's traditional. Okay. She has her way of doing things, and then she had expectations where, I'll give you an example. She would typically at home, Umakoti would run the house, do everything. While as with her, it's like, why am I not being helped? Why aren't people doing what they normally do when I'm not here? If as a man you don't protect her, that abuse will go for the longest time. But now because I fought with my mom, but I knew that we easy to mend. Yeah. While as if she fights with her, it might be something chaotic for the longest time. So I fought with her. Yes, she didn't like how I spoke and all those things. But after a while, she sort of
came to the party.
Yes, and then at times we even go to an extent of saying, okay, I won't come back home if this is the case, because I'm not coming alone, And then they realize that, okay, this is serious. So me saying I won't come back home was not literally meaning that I won't come back home. It was saying this is serious to me.
And it wasn't an attack on the mom, because he spoke to me as well. It's like, okay, so here are two women that are not going anywhere, my wife and my mom. So y'all need to be,
So also to my wife, the message was simple. Look, this is my mom. She carried me. She cared for me, and she raised me. So now you need to sort of accommodate her. We don't see her 24/7. We see her like during holidays, which is mostly a weekend. So surely you can put up with her demands for that weekend, and then we'll see how we grow from one weekend to the other, which is like in 3 months' time. So we'll try and grow from one weekend to the other.
We were taking sides.
Yeah, we're taking sides. Like
I was taking my family
why
side.
is your family not or disrespecting us in a certain way? And she was like, no, but why are you not standing up and telling your people to do this because remember that you coming to ask for me, for my hand in marriage, and so on and so on. So it caused a bit of tension.
It did. We fought quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, especially after the first negotiation.
Yeah.
Because the price went up.
Yeah. So
from the
now
original negotiated
we've already
price.
set a date for 6 months further, and now all of a sudden the amount is higher. But
so
yeah,
it destabilizes a lot of things, and I
Yeah.
was just not happy with how his uncles dealt with everything, and he wasn't happy with my family changing things, and now, so we fought. Hey, I won't lie, and until we reached a point where we were like, you know what, it's not about them, it's about us, and they have to sort it out. They have to figure it out. So eventually we got back on track, and we realized,
let's do this.
Let's do this.
This is our love story. This is our journey.
The first year was really cool because we made a conscious decision to just build a firm foundation for our marriage, to kind of cut back on like I was really committed in the youth at our church, but we took a decision to say, like, we're going to focus on our marriage and be able to just spend time with each other because we're never going to get the first year back. So we moved into this really small place. Although I owned my own house, I rented it out, and we moved into a small little place away from everybody so that we could just be together.
It was exciting, but it was ticking a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
Sure, we paced ourselves. So we got into a place where before we stayed with our parents for quite a while, and then we moved out. In the moving out part, it was a basic process of saying that, you know what, now's the time where things will go at our pace. We'll determine when we do things and how we do things as well.
Yeah.
And we'll enjoy the ride. We ticked a lot of boxes. I mean, there's times where we stayed without a couch.
For 5 months, tell
for
them.
5 months.
5 months. Without
we chilled,
a couch.
You know, we were having picnics.
Romantic
indoor
picnics.
you know, and we enjoyed it. You know, and we're like, you know what, we're building to it.
In terms of our relationship, I think it was beautiful. We supported each other a lot, and we stood by each other. And it made us stronger because it was so challenging financially. We were sure. Like when we started, I wasn't working. I was just getting to start a course. After that course, I started a business, and he was still busy trying to push for his music career. So we literally 2 people moving in together, no more support from our parents, and we've got we literally have no foundation. So it was a lot. I remember I even said the one time, there was a time where we didn't even know if we we're going to make it to the end of the month and what we're going to eat, but God came through every time. So yeah, it was tough. Obviously we had our challenges, we had our fights. I remember the first time my parents wanted to come visit, and Brenden said no, and I didn't understand. I said, oh my gosh, this guy doesn't want my family. But in his defense, we couldn't offer them juice and biscuits.
Yeah.
And I said, no, but my dad will buy. And he was just like, no, that's not how.
There is no way another man is buying juice and biscuits at my home.
So that was one of our first biggest fights. I remember I cried my eyes out, and I thought, what mistake did I make? But you know, it had its challenges, but I think ultimately we became stronger and closer.
No, it was definitely beautiful. I think it was beautiful in a challenging way. Sometimes it's those kind of moments where you have no one else but God to rely on, where you appreciate who God is and what He is in your life. And I think that was the foundation. Like, I'm glad that you actually mentioned that we didn't have a foundation. I'm glad we didn't have a foundation because we got to build a foundation, and that foundation became God, because that's all we had. We didn't have a lot of money. We were just kind of living like hand to mouth from, you know. And that was our year. But in that, I think we grew closer to one another, you know, because that's all we had. So talking and communicating was important, and keeping each other excited and motivated, that was important. And yeah, that was our first year.
I'd say first year of marriage requires a lot of focus. Because now you have this person, and then you realize that you can either, because you have 2 different systems, you have 2 different backgrounds. She's a female, I'm a male, and then we just have ways of thinking, ways of looking at things. So you mostly compromise your views, your position, so that at the end of the day you have at least a little bit of peace, which I value, than a lot of fights. Because if you come across strong from the first year, you may be misunderstood as this bully guy. So you try to ease into things, and as when you grow from one challenge, you then introduce another one, or you try to refine it to say, actually, that's not how I prefer.
I used to cry because Leander would leave for work, and so he would like call me, video call me, and now I would see him sitting on a couch, and I would cry. Be like, you're sitting on a couch, and I'm on the floor.
What must I
You're
do?
sitting on the couch, and he's like, it's not mine.
What must I do?
I'm at work, babe. I'm like, this is unfair. This is unfair. It's been 5 months. And I'm thinking, he's thinking, but we talked about this. We know our plan. It was just those little random moments that would just tick me off. Like, oh my gosh, I'm still on the floor. All I had was a curtain and a carpet and a TV that was on the floor. And a fridge that our parents had given us, which was leaking constantly. All the time I have to mop. All the time I'm just complaining about mopping as well. But those are the joys now that we look back at and we're like, yeah, that was actually quite cool.
I just loved going back home to my husband. I loved going home to my kids. I loved going home to cook. Obviously there's challenges because you actually don't really know that person much. And I think especially when you get married so young, you literally grow in your marriage. And growing sometimes can change your perspective on so many things. Like, it's like every year, it's like I'm a different woman every year now, The way I think has changed. The way I do things have changed. So is he going to like my little changes or not? Am I liking how he's changing? So I think it was challenging in that aspect, in that we're growing and then now we're becoming smarter. And now, sometimes it might just feel like, I know too much now, or she's not so cool anymore, or she's not. But I think for me, it was beautiful. I think I just loved being married. I still love being married. It was just like, for me, I love that.
This is our love story. This is our journey.
He married me knowing I had 6 months to live. It was touch and go. It was nights of night sweats to the point of the bed would be wet. And in the first maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks of our marriage, I forgot that I was the one that was sick. And my bed, I would wake up sometime, I'd be wet. And I think, oh my gosh, did my new husband have an accident? Not realizing it was me. But there were times where I would sleep through the night and wake up and be completely changed, where he would bring a pair of underwear, a new t-shirt, wash me down, and I'd be out, and didn't even realize. So the first year was, it stressful would be a good word. An enormous growth spurt.
That's where the part of seeking after God came in very handy, because it's not like one anticipated that this is now what is going to happen, but at the end of the day, I knew one thing, that as long as we both praying the same prayer, anything is possible. So in her weakness, I'll be the one having to remind the Lord to say, hey, listen, you didn't tell me that I'm going to get married for 6 months, and have widow. But it was more than just, it was knowing that it's not going to be final. It's knowing that there's something that, the Lord has as a long-term plan. So I stayed believing that it's not going to be the 6 months. Something else is going to happen, definitely.
I think the hardest thing for the both of us was definitely losing our firstborn baby. That rocked the boat for us.
Yeah.
Because it was a shock, number one. It was such a painful time, but it really tested our relationship. Because we were in our own pain, and then also we had to be there for each other, and well, more him being there for me. And I think also when we were, when you get married, it's like the early stages, you have so many dreams. You have all of these dreams you plan together, and having your first child is one of them where you want everything to work, and then that crashed. And after the baby passed away, then he lost his job. And then he was jobless like a few months after that. And
that was pretty crazy.
So financially as well. So we had to deal with the death. We had to deal with him losing his job financially. And I remember us having the conversation. He sat there and he said, "Babe, we've got money enough to last us 6 months, and after that, we're going to be struggling."
And that was off my credit card.
Off credit card.
So I must say she's been pretty resourceful, because she used to make rotis and sell in the area. So she was pretty good. And I'm actually glad we went through that time, because we appreciate the time that we have now. I think the hardest thing I had to go through was sitting in a hospital on a Thursday afternoon and knowing that the next Sunday you're to bury your firstborn child. I was in shock. I was numbed. In fact, I didn't even know how to handle it. And I think my focus was more not about myself, but how do I get her through, because she'd been through it more than me. I mean, I could handle it. I was a man, but she was the one that physically, went through the last 9 months. I will become a father once the baby's born, but she becomes a mother once she's impregnated. So for me, it was more about focusing on her. And I must say that one of the things that really helped us was one of our friends, our pastors and our church really played a big role in terms of helping us and praying for us. But a friend of mine told us that we must take communion every day for however long we feel. It'll take our situation off our eyes off the situation and put our eyes on God, So we did that, and we just felt that we were getting stronger, and we tried to trust God again. And it was really, I used to question God a lot. And then God took me to Job, the book of Job, and where he showed me a few scriptures that I should not be questioning him. And from that day, I clearly remember saying that I'll trust you, God. I will let this go. And from then, I think we're still healing. It's not something that we totally heal from. We heal every day. I think every time we talk about it, you can still feel the sense of pain, you still feel the sense of loss, but we know that God is ultimately in control of that, and that's what helps us through every day. That we trust God, and I think that's ultimately how you move on, is you're able to trust God again.
Next time on Our Love Journey.
There should never be anything that competes against your marriage in whatever way. So whatever your marriage gets to compete against, it will resent. So, I mean, when there's competition, one has to bow. So your marriage will cause, if it's your job, your marriage will cause a job to bow, and you will begin to resent your job. If it's your families, if your marriage is competing against families, you'll end up resenting your families.